March 2006. Off the coast of Queensland, Australian authorities spot a massive white tanker drifting silently across the waves. No distress calls, no flags, no name painted across the hull. From a distance, it looks untouched by time itself. When the Coast Guard boards her, they expect chaos, storm damage, survivors, at least something. Instead, they find nothing. No crew, no cargo, no logbook, no trace of where the vessel had come from or where it was going. The only sign of life was a cup of coffee on the bridge, still warm. Cases like this aren't rare footnotes in maritime history. They're constant reminders that the ocean has a memory, and it whispers through ships like these. But the real question isn't just what happened. It's why do these mysteries haunt us so deeply? Before we dive in, what's scarier? Finding a dead crew, or finding no crew at all? Your gut reaction in the comments. Ghost ships aren't new. The Flying Dutchman, the Mary Celeste. These names echo through maritime history not because they sank, but because they didn't make sense. A wreck is closure. A ghost ship leaves questions. But here's what most people don't know. While we've been obsessing over 150-year-old puzzles, new ghost ships are appearing on satellite feeds right now. And these aren't folklore. They're active investigations with no clear answers. Take the MV Lyubov Orlova, a Soviet passenger ship abandoned in 2010. It was spotted drifting toward Europe with no crew, no flag, then vanished from radar for months, only to reappear thousands of miles away. Some nicknamed it the Rat Ship, believing hordes of rodents had taken over. Whether true or not, its unpredictable course forced Coast Guards to track it like a phantom threat. And here's the unnerving twist. Modern ghost ships don't just vanish quietly into history. They reappear, often in places they shouldn't be. Some drift across thousands of miles. Some are boarded, then disappear again, as if the ocean itself refuses to give them up. What's the real difference between a shipwreck and a ghost ship? Think about it. I'll give you the answer investigators use, and it'll completely change how you see these cases. March 2006. Off the coast of Queensland, Australia, a surveillance plane spots a massive white tanker drifting silently. No distress calls, no registered voyage plan, no crew visible on deck. The ship's name, Jian Seng, a rusted bulk carrier flying no flag, carrying no cargo. When Coast Guards boarded, they expected chaos, maybe evidence of piracy, maybe a storm-damaged crew. But the logbook was blank, the galley untouched, and strangest of all, the engines were fully functional. The Jian Seng had power, yet no one at the helm. Investigators later theorized it was an illegal ghost freighter, abandoned after being used for smuggling. But nothing was ever proven. To this day, nobody knows who owned it, or why it was deliberately set adrift. Then there's the MV Lyubov Orlova, empty for 2 years, yet still broadcasting an automated distress signal as it drifted toward Europe, like a mechanical cry for help no one could answer. And the Aim 6, discovered near Australia in 2003. Its crew's toothbrushes still lined up in the bathroom, as if they just stepped out for a smoke break and never returned. The deeper you dig, the stranger the cases become. These aren't derelicts sunk by storms. They're ships found sailing themselves. Quick challenge for you. If you were a Coast Guard investigator stepping aboard the Jian Seng, what would be the first thing you'd look for? The bridge logs? The radio? Or the crew's personal items? Drop your answer in the comments. I guarantee investigators do it in a very specific order. Step onto a ghost ship and you'll feel it instantly. The uncanny silence. Human spaces aren't meant to be empty. Captain Maria Santos, who boarded the Jian Seng in 2006, later said, "I've seen storm damage, fire damage, even murder scenes. But walking through those empty corridors, it felt like the ship was watching me." That's the unsettling part investigators describe over and over, the presence of absence. Remember the Aim 6? Investigators found toothbrushes lined up in the bathroom, perfectly organized. That detail wasn't just eerie, it was wrong. No crew abandons ship and leaves things neatly behind. It wasn't what they found that unsettled them, but what they didn't. Psychologists explain it this way. Our brains are wired to fear the unseen more than the known. A fire, a storm, even pirates, those dangers are visible. But a ship that sails itself, That feels like the ocean exposing the limits of human control. But sometimes, the ocean gives us more than feelings. Sometimes it gives us answers. That tension split investigators on the Jian Seng. Some swore something dangerous was still hidden aboard. Others insisted it was the total emptiness that made the vessel unbearable. Which scares you more, the hidden danger or the absolute emptiness? The Jian Seng team was divided the exact same way. Drop your answer in the comments. It reveals more about your psychology than you think. And that's when investigators realized something crucial about these ghost ships. For decades, investigators assumed ghost ships were just tragedies without survivors. But a pattern is emerging from recent cold cases that suggests something far more unsettling. Many of these ships weren't lost. They were deliberately abandoned. Take the Kaz II, found drifting near Australia in 2007. The engines were running. Food sat half-eaten on the table. A laptop was still open. But the three-man crew? Gone. Not a single distress call or sign of panic. Just vanished. Satellite imagery has even revealed ships like the Sam Ratchalangi PB 1600, a 177-meter freighter that appeared off Myanmar in 2018, empty, abandoned, yet perfectly seaworthy. These vessels aren't being claimed by the ocean. They're being surrendered to it. This raises the darker question, abandoned by choice or abandoned by force. The U.S. Coast Guard has logged dozens of reports of drifting hazards that seem almost staged. If you discovered a fully working yacht with dinner still warm on the table, would you board it or call for rescue? Because investigators who stepped aboard these modern ghost ships didn't just find silence. They found evidence pointing to something even stranger. At first, ghost ships seemed like isolated mysteries, strange flukes scattered across centuries. But once investigators began comparing notes, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. These weren't simply unlucky vessels. Many looked like they'd been deliberately staged. Take the Hyam 6, discovered drifting off Australia in 2003. Supplies were untouched, fuel reserves intact. But what unsettled investigators most wasn't what was missing, it was what remained. In the bathroom, toothbrushes had been lined up neatly, as if the crew expected to return at any moment. Nothing suggested panic, storm, or mutiny, just silence. Then came the Jian Seng. Its hull had been stripped of markings, its history erased. Coast Guard officers who boarded described the experience as walking through a movie set designed to unsettle. Captain Maria Santos later said, "I've seen storm damage, fire damage, even murder scenes. But walking through those empty corridors, it felt like the ship was watching me." And what about the Kaz II, found drifting near Australia in 2007? The engine still ran. A laptop sat open. Meals waited half-eaten. But the three-man crew had disappeared as though plucked from existence. That's when investigators realized something crucial. Ghost ships don't just happen. They're created. The theory of deliberate abandonment began to take shape. Ships stripped of identity, left adrift, almost like floating warnings, but abandoned by choice or by force. Some reports even suggest these vessels are used in smuggling operations, insurance fraud, or darker crimes never officially acknowledged. Quick thought experiment. If you discovered a yacht drifting with dinner still warm on the table, would you climb aboard or call for rescue? Drop your instinct in the comments. Because investigators who did climb aboard didn't just find silence. They found evidence pointing to something far stranger. The deeper investigators looked, the more the ocean began to resemble a vast, unsettling memory bank, storing secrets no one intended to reveal. Ships like the Sam Ratchalangi PB 1600, a 177-meter freighter that suddenly appeared off Myanmar in 2018, seemed almost staged. Perfectly intact, seaworthy, yet abandoned. Who benefits from setting a ship adrift like that? Criminal networks? Insurance scams? Or something darker, meant to vanish without witnesses? But there's also the human cost. In coastal communities, ghost ships are more than curiosities. Fishermen in Indonesia tell stories of finding derelict vessels and refusing to board, believing them cursed. In Japan, villagers along the coast dread the North Korean ghost boats that wash ashore each winter. Skeletal remains still aboard. To them, these vessels aren't mysteries. They're grim reminders of hunger, failed missions, and human desperation. So maybe the real ghost isn't a ship. Maybe it's the silence of the people who never made a home. Psychologists argue this is why ghost ships strike so deeply. They don't just symbolize death, they symbolize absence. No storm, no wreckage, no goodbye. Just emptiness where live should be. It forces us to confront something the human mind resists. The possibility of vanishing without explanation. And that brings us to the uncomfortable truth. Ghost ships aren't merely legends. They're confessions, written not in ink, but in steel hulls drifting silently across the ocean. Some whisper of fraud, others of failed escapes, and some horrors no one has dared to document. So tell me, if the ocean really does remember, what do you think it's trying to tell us with these ghost ships? Drop your theory in the comments. And if you want to keep unraveling mysteries that blur the line between psychology and the planet itself, don't sail away. We've got another case waiting for you.